Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on with the Mission Impossible review marathon. So yes, that's right. We now come to the second installment. And yeah, because, again, who'd have thought that with the first installment, this would be the beginning of what would become the best spy saga of all time. However, with the first sequel / second installment of Mission Impossible, kind of a rough start for the next installment, and from there on, well, kind of. Yeah, because the second installment being a mixed bag. But you know what? For me personally, I actually liked it. I quite enjoyed it. But to those, including my mom, because yeah, my mom did not enjoy the second one that much. Shout out to her, as I sometimes do. Yeah. But again, for me personally, I didn't think it was that bad. Sure, I mean, I get that the story, not the best and strong one in the franchise, but still, yeah. So that's right. From 2000, the second installment of Mission Impossible, simply titled Mission Impossible 2. Yes. So Mission Impossible 2, again, I get the fact that the second installment, and which being directed by John Woo, not the best in the franchise and in the saga, but at the same time, is it really that bad? I mean, I totally get and understood, what the story was to this movie and the plot, and the desperate attempt and the race to, stop the main villains of this Mission Impossible film from, letting out a deadly virus and, the fact that there is a cure for this virus, just, yeah. And very creative on the names of the virus and the cure to this, but until I get to that. And the chemistry with the characters, most notably Ethan Hunt, and his relationship with someone whom was in a relationship with the main antagonist, but then she did leave him, and it didn't take that long for this gal and Ethan to lay eyes on one each other, love at first sight, and he's very concerned about her and her safety, and especially towards her ex-evil lover, and the fact that, Ethan's team members, one of them most notably being Luther, but in addition, a new face that's alongside with them, and the fact that the entirety of this Mission Impossible film taking place in Australia, which is really cool, and the action sequences and moments where you're just like, oh my gosh, you're up at your seat, I mean, Mission Impossible never fails at that. Just, yeah. And with Hans Zimmer's music and score, yes, I mean, have to mention the composer for this Mission Impossible film, Hans Zimmer. It's great to see, starting with Danny Elfman, and then Hans Zimmer, and then after Hans Zimmer, Michael Giacchino, but until I get to the third installment. So yes. Just overall, I enjoyed the second installment of Mission Impossible. It may not be the best, sure, in the Mission Impossible franchise, the saga, but at the same time, I don't really see / view it being bad, okay? I'm just simply saying. And I'm sure some of you probably liked and enjoyed the second installment. Feel free to let me know, of course, yeah. But overall, I enjoyed it. It was really good. Not to mention, I just feel like bringing this up already, in case I forget, this would be the second and last Mission Impossible film to have the Paramount logo that we would see sometime around the late 80s and throughout the 90s. Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out. So, and up until, when the third installment came, we had the brand new Paramount logo, especially around the time when, Paramount was celebrating its anniversary around 2002. So, yeah, but anyways. All right, but again, overall, I liked the second Mission Impossible film, and say what you will, but yeah. All right, so, yeah, okay. So, and actually, I want to point out John Woo before I read the description / the story, because, yeah, John Woo, I'm I'm familiar with, and and my mom, once again, shout out to my mom, because not really into John Woo's work in movies, and I'm sure maybe the same goes for some of you, but that's not to say that, well, yeah, John Woo has directed a good chunk of stinkers, but he's directed some pretty good films. Like, before he would go on to do, say, the second installment of Mission Impossible, one of the previous films he did that was a pretty good one was Face Off with Nick Cage and Travolta. Yep, that was John. All right, and, well, and besides, John Woo being no stranger to action flicks and such, and, he seemed like a perfect fit to, helm the second installment of Mission Impossible 2, but, there were some clashes with John Woo and Tom Cruise, behind the camera, like, most notably, Tom Cruise proving to John that he can do his stunts. Of course he can! Is John not aware? I mean, especially how many more epic and crazy stunts Tom would do in the later Mission Impossible films, or in any other film he had done later on. So, yeah. All right. So with that out of the way on John Woo, now, as always, and also with the first things I've had to say, my thoughts on Mission Impossible 2, now, as always, read the description / the story. Tom Cruise returns to his role as Ethan Hunt in the second installment of Mission Impossible. This time, Ethan Hunt leads his IMF team on a mission to capture a deadly German virus before it is released by terrorists. His mission is made impossible, due to the fact that he is not the only person after samples of the disease. He must also contest with a gang of international terrorists headed by a turned bad former IMF agent, and another IMF agent who becomes a traitor, who has already managed to steal the cure. All right, so with that out of the way, also, one fun fact I will mention, and a little bit of background, because, well, it's obvious that, for audiences who had seen the first Mission Impossible film, well, we would see another Mission Impossible film in the next few years, and thus we would. However, it did get pushed back / delayed, and, with filming, because Tom Cruise, at that time, around 1997 and 98, he was very busy with Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, and where he co-starred along with his then-wife, Nicole Kidman. But thankfully, after Eyes Wide Shut was complete and done, then, obviously went straight to work on filming the second installment. And, so I just thought I'd throw that out. So anyways, alright, so, getting into the film itself, well, because, this disease, and one of the first characters we see that is testing out this disease is Dr. Nekrovich. Yeah, Dr. Nekrovich. I have to say that kind of in German. Nekrovich. Played by Rad Serbadensia. If I am pronouncing that right, I don't know, but yeah. So he is testing out this disease, which he injects it in himself, but there is a cure to this disease, and this disease being called Chimera. Yeah. And Chimera, this virus that was created from the Biosite Pharmaceuticals, which resides in Australia. And the doctor having tested it out, but he soon departs Australia and the Biosite building, and to meet with this guy named Dimitri. And he boards a plane, gonna make his way to the U.S., and also the fact that he's been in contact with the IMF, and because of this virus, and, there is a cure, And when he's on his plane, he meets with Dimitri, which apparently it's Ethan, We already get Ethan, or is it? That's the thing, because then at one point, the captain in the plane has the passengers put on the masks, but in those masks is this gas, and it conks them out. And the same goes for the other, pilots, in the cockpit. All except for the captain. Oh boy. Well, if we couldn't tell already, the plane's been hijacked by the terrorists. And, Ethan, knocks out the doctor, but, does kill him. I think, by snapping his neck or something. And basically, them knowing that somehow, because these terrorists are a group of bad guys in this film, finding out that, the doctor boarding the plane was going to make his way to the U.S., and their opportunity to sneak on the plane, hijack it, and steal the virus, of course, the disease, and thus they do. And it was not Ethan Hunt who was playing the part of Dimitri. It was someone who stole Ethan's identity by ripping off that mask. We have our main villain of the second installment of Mission Impossible, and whom is a traitor of IMF, who's now a terrorist. Sean Ambrose, being played by Dougray Scott. I hope I'm pronouncing his first name right. You know me sometimes, but I think I am. Yeah. So, they succeed on capturing the disease, and, thus, them ditching the plane, parachuting, and, letting the plane crash. And even when the first officer wakes up, he tried to, get the plane to rise, but there was not enough time. It was too late, and, everybody on that plane, innocent people being killed when the plane hits these mountains, But then, right after that, we then get the opening credits, and we see Ethan Hunt himself, once again, being played by Tom Cruise, who's on holiday. He's taking a vacation. He's climbing giant cliffs and such. Looks like it's in the Grand Canyon or something. I'm probably wrong, but, that, when the credits open and with Ethan, climbing and such, he's enjoying his holiday / shore leave, that almost reminds me, and it kind of resembles, like, what was done in Star Trek V, where Kirk taking shore leave, and as the credits roll, and beautiful music that plays from Jerry Goldsmith, and seeing Kirk climbing Yosemite rocks, and so see, like, that's an example. That's really cool. But Ethan's holiday / vacation / shore leave is interrupted when a chopper, obviously from IMF, drops off a missile, harmless, and inside of the missile, and Ethan already got what was going on and chuckling about it. Opening the missile, and there's these special shades. Put them on, and we hear a voice, a British voice from IMF, assigning Ethan, like, if he's to take this mission or not, about, the disease. And he can have 2 members alongside with him, but he's told that he needs to bring in Nia Hall for this mission and with this virus. And, the message of self-destruct, Ethan throwing the glasses, and then the credits finish, and with our title logo. And in the second installment, I like how we get a rock version of the Mission Impossible theme on the guitar. It really jacks you up, just dun, 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 dun. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah! And best said by Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic, when talking about the Mission Impossible theme. I'm sure you know, but alright, anyways. So after that, Ethan, whom goes to find and, bring in this Nia person to join with this mission that Ethan's been asked to take part in. And he finds Nia at Spain, And, because, when we first see Nia, and Nia Hall being played by Thandwi Newton, I'm pretty sure, I am pronouncing her first name right, but you know who it is. And fun fact, Nicole Kidman recommended / suggested Newton to be casted in the second installment. Yeah, good on her, because Thaddeus Newton, a great actress. I think she did pretty good in the second installment of Mission Impossible. Wouldn't you think so? Alright, anyways, but, so, in Spain, we see, Naya. We see her, like, sneaking around this palace. Well, not really, but still. It's the home of Senor de la Reina, who's played by Antonio Vargas, she's like stealing an item or something, making her way into the bathroom, and then Ethan happens to be right there. And already, because the chemistry between them, it's great, and, Senor de la Reina knows Ethan, and, like a guard or something for him, but it's just pretty funny with what happens and their first interactions. And, Ethan, telling Naya on, the whole thing that, she has to be a part of this mission, and because of the virus, but, Ethan, doesn't go pretty well trying to convince her, not quite. I mean, she's kind of like, it's obvious that she's messing with him, and even when, like, there's a little car chase, you have to catch me and such, and that small car chase sequence, Ethan's trying to catch up to Naya, even when she, like, tried to ram him over or something, like, geez, like, why do that? Just like, not cool. But then it gets out of hand with the car chase, and they almost end up crashing. Like, basically, Naya almost goes off to the side of an edge of a cliff, but thankfully, Ethan, saves her in time, and after all that happened, well, it seems like, Naya will join in, but, after they've had sex, basically, and by the next morning, and when Ethan laying it all out to Naya on what they have to do, and with her involvement in this, and not to mention her connections with whom has stolen the virus, and when Ethan later on finds out about this. Meanwhile, and later on, Ethan meets with one of the, directors of IMF. And he's uncredited, which is a shame. I mean, but, I'm pretty sure by that point, and when the second installment came out, we knew who it is, of course. We know who it is that makes an appearance, and even though he's uncredited, it's Hannibal Lecter himself, Anthony Hopkins. Yeah. And what can you say about Anthony Hopkins? He never disappoints. He's always a delight to watch on screen, right? So he is Mission Commander Swanbeck. Yeah, I would say a director, but, one of the, main guys of IMF. So, Swanbeck talking with Ethan, and because, about the late doctor, and unfortunately, because Ethan finding out that the doctor had been killed in the plane crash, although Swanbeck plays a message that was sent to IMF, shortly before he was killed, and, about the virus and with the cure, and the mention of, the name of the cure, but also, like, the name of the disease, but also the cure. And the name of the cure is Bellerophon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Basically, like, if any of you are familiar with Bellerophon, because, he was among his greatest feats was killing the Chimera. So if you know that whole story and how it's talked about in the second installment, and because, Bellerophon is the good guy while the Chimera is the villain, and it's great. I like how it's done, and because, we have the cure, who was the hero, and the virus, the disease, that's the villain. So, with some talk that they have, and, about, and also with Naya being a part of this, and to help Ethan, and eventually, when Ethan finds out that, she used to be a girlfriend of the villain, and, now Ethan is concerned and worried for Naya, and, because it didn't take that long for Ethan to fall in love instantly with Naya. I mean, why would something not like that happen, in reality? But just, yeah. There are moments like that, but anyways, so who's to say they can't happen? All right, but anyways, so a little later, and thus the rest of the movie taking place in Sydney, Australia, and even getting cool shots of Sydney, and with the Sydney Opera House, yeah. And, Ethan, they did this earlier, where Ethan injected something was injected in Naya's ankle, below her foot. Tracking device. And not to mention that we learned that Naya had been arrested before because, well, she had been a thief. But this time, hopefully, because with this, it could redeem her. Yeah. So, with what was injected in her ankle, this will allow to track her where she is, and when, she will come face to face and reunite with her ex-lover. And then, even Sean being aware that he will meet his ex-girlfriend. Meanwhile, Ethan's two, crewmates, that come in and help Ethan and such, that are assigned to help and aid Ethan, well, obviously, one of the two being Luther, once again being played by good old Vin Rams, and a new face, an Australian guy from IMF, obviously, and who's a chopper pilot. Billy Baird, I think I'm getting the last name right, being played by John Polson. And Billy, I thought Billy was a pretty good character in the second installment. It's obvious that we can kind of tell that, he has his funny moments, but at the same time, he's a very good and loyal member of IMF, and when he helps out Ethan and Luther, and when, whatever it is that they do, throughout the film, and, say when Billy has to pretend to be, has to play the part of someone, and when interacting with the villains, or when he's flying in the chopper, Billy, overall, he was a pretty good character. And thankfully, because, unlike the first installment, we not only had Luther, but, someone else who was a trustworthy member of IMF and not a traitor, unlike, say, the last guy, who was a chopper pilot. You get my point. So, when Naya makes her way to meet with her ex-boyfriend at the house that he's staying at, thankfully so far, Sean does not suspect anything, and, it's like love at first sight again, I guess you could say, even though that Naya, she is playing along, and getting close to Sean and knowing about the virus, but, Sean's henchman, and to name his henchman, there's Hugh Stamp, being played by Richard Roxburgh. I think, I have seen Richard before in other films. There's also Wallace, spelled, W-A, 2 L's, I-S, Wallace, Wallace, I think I am pronouncing it right, but just to verify. And to point out how his name is spelled. Wallace being played by William Mapother, I think, And there's also Ulrich, played by Dominic Purcell. And, some of the other characters, I'll get to them later and as I continue reviewing this. But, again, her getting close and knowing about the virus and, with the device that she has in her ankle. And also, they can hear what's going on, kind of. But then, say, Hugh, he's the only one, unlike Sean, the main villain. My point being is one of Sean's henchmen is suspicious towards Naya, but Sean sets Hugh in his place and doing something to his finger, wounding it, stapling or something. The device, the contraption he uses, painful. And basically, Hugh is not to do anything and just to keep his mouth shut. Sean will know and suspect something from Naya if he does. Okay, and to speed things up some, because, yeah, then at one point, and the more that Nya spends with Sean and helping out Ethan, Luther, and Billy, and most notably Ethan, well, at one point they're at this horse race event, and, well, one horse that wins, Nya placed a bet on. But then, Sean meets with the CEO of the pharmaceuticals place, yeah. That was the Biosite, yeah, Bioset Pharmaceuticals, the CEO, which being McCloy, being played by Brendan Gleeson, aka Mad-Eye Moody in the Harry Potter franchise. Yep, that's him. Before being in Harry Potter, he was in Mission Impossible. So, yeah, so okay. Sean meeting with McCloy and showing some video footage of, testing out the virus on one of the employees at, Bioside Pharmaceuticals, and apparently it would take many hours for the virus to infect and do something to the body, but there is a cure, and there is a mention of, that the virus being sent out to the world, and yeah. And not to mention, McCloy is then blackmailed, obviously, presumably by Sean, to cooperate. Yeah. And thankfully, Nya is able to get the footage that was shown to McCloy and send it and pass it on to Ethan and such. Yeah. It was a close call because, her trying to, behind her arm and such. And even when Billy stepped in and, playing a character and, pretending to be someone at the racehorse event, and even when Billy interacts with one of Sean's henchmen, Hugh. But, yeah, overall, thankfully, they succeeded on retrieving the tape, but, yeah, at the same time, the situation that Nya's in and how Ethan still feels towards Nya and concerned of her safety, just, yeah. I mean, who can blame Ethan that, he has fallen in love with Nya and the consequences and, the situation they're in. Just, yeah. And also, the mention on how long it takes for the virus to hit, whom it is that gets infected and is injected with it, up to, say, 20 to 24 hours until, yeah, something happens, and, yeah. And that's what Ethan and his team learn. Then, at one point, and to still speed things up some, at one point, and if it wasn't obvious, because sometimes you can never tell, whom is which, and when someone's getting captured, and, those in disguises, you know what I'm saying? Just, yeah. But my point being is that McCloy, he gets captured in his limo when being driven back home. Gas is ignited inside the limo through the, car vents, and, well, finds himself in a hospital room where he's encountered and greeted by Dr. Nikrovich, which... Yeah, but if you couldn't tell already that, okay, there's no way, obviously not. It's someone in disguise, right? Basically, Nikrovich, or is it? Nikrovich, talking to McCloy, and basically to give up the samples of the cure, the Bellerophon, Bellerophon. I'm trying my best pronouncing it, but just, yeah, the cure, just, yeah, by now, and with how the virus and the cure, the names they were given specifically, but yeah, okay, my point being is that Nekrovich, or so it is, talking to McCloy about, giving up the samples of the cure, but according to McCloy, they were given to Ambrose, and yeah, because basically by this point, Ambrose has the cure in his hands, and even at one point, Ethan, or so it is, encountered Nya back at, the house where Ambrose resides, and talking about what all happened and what's going to happen next. And, well, when Nikrovich steps out, and after some gas comes in, knocking out McCloy, I guess, yeah, just for him to forget on what happened and the fact that he was interacting with Nikrovich, or so it was. Nikrovich was Ethan Hunt the whole time, talking with McCloy, yeah, ripping off the mask that resembles Nikrovich, and it's Ethan, and yeah. So Ethan, who's there, where Naya is, it's not. If it's not obvious already, it's Ambrose, yeah, and he finds out of Ethan's presence, and, well, the fact that he now knows that Ethan's gonna go after the cure, and most notably the virus, and which would lead up to the good guys and the bad guys to make their way to the main building of Biosite Pharmaceuticals, and yeah, that's what happens next. Okay, so that whole sequence, like, yeah, where Ethan, along with Luther and Billy, who's piloting the chopper, making their way up top to, you know, the Biosite Pharmaceuticals building, well, and the fact that, you know, from Ethan and most notably Ambrose, laying out all the details on, you know, how, you know, they each specifically get into the building, and Ambrose knows what Ethan is more than likely going to do. Well, because the fact that Ambrose, having been an ex-IMF agent, so, yeah. So, of course, he knows what Ethan's more than likely going to do. And, yeah, because Ethan, up top of the building and, you know, jumping out of the chopper on a wire, going through this roof where it opens, you know, occasionally, just, yeah, every so often. And he manages to make it, like, right when it's opening, and yeah, it's really cool, and the suspense to that. And thankfully, because with not being seen by one of the security guards, like, he unattaches himself to the wire makes its way back up just in time, and yeah, now Ethan can wander his way through the building in order to get the virus. And even when, yeah, he gets to the room, the specific room where the virus is, and, well, he was going to inject it in himself, but then he recalled something about the late doctor, and knowing that the doctor had injected himself, and, you know, and especially, like, also, forgot to point this out where, yeah, Ethan brought up to Luther about the whole thing on, you know, the specific names that were given to the virus and the cure. And of course, you know, the names of the cure and the virus being from actual, like, you know, beings, you know, because, again, you know, if you know the whole story of Bellerophon and the Chimera, because, yeah, Chimera had a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail, just, yeah. And yeah, I mean, I can read it, because, you know, I can read some of it, because, yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay, so among his greatest, okay, so Bellerophon, or Bellerophons, or Hipponoias, however, you know me sometimes, just, yeah, was a divine Coronithon hero of Greek mythology, yes. The son of Poseidon and Euronome. I know I'm probably butchering their names, but, you know, don't we sometimes, you know, because when it comes to Greek mythology. And the foster son of Glaucus. He was the greatest hero and slayer of monsters, alongside Cadamus and Perseus, yeah, before the days of Hercules. Okay, among the greatest feats was killing the Chimera of the Liliad, if I said that right, a monster that Homer depicted with a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail. Her breath came out in terrible blasts of burning flame. Okay, so, and with what Ethan explains to Luther, so just, yeah, just wanted to get that out of the way. So, anyways, so, Ethan, yeah, he stopped himself, and when he remembered, and just, yeah, like, not injecting himself with, you know, the virus, but then, sure enough, Ambrose and the bad guys, they come in, firing their guns, but then, Sean Ambrose has them to stop, and not to mention that one gun that has the virus in it, it's right there on the floor and can't risk accidentally shooting it, and a little interaction between Ethan and Ambrose. It's a bit funny, and they seem to kind of get along and with what they talk, but still, them being enemies, and then, At one point, Luther can see on the monitors that, and in the vehicle he's in, that Nya is present. She's there in the building and is going to make her way to Ethan. And unfortunately, at one point inside the building of the pharmaceuticals, Luther is unable to contact Ethan for now, because losing connection. But up until, when there is signal, then, reestablishing contact with Ethan. And Luther warning and giving Ethan the heads up on Nya's presence. And it's not obvious that, Ambrose has Nya gun pointed and threatening Ethan, but, Ethan, telling Ambrose to let Nya go, and she has no involvement in this whatsoever, and what he specifically says. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot, Ethan was, and does, destroy and dispose all of the, viruses, gets rid of it except for one. And because when Ambrose and his men come in and having Ambrose gun pointed and ordering Nya to retrieve the last sample, but she injects it into herself, and, well, the fact that she wanted to keep Ethan safe and not have him be killed. And then there's another gun shooting, and even when, some of the security guards do come in, and with Hans Zimmer's amazing music and score, I think that the music and score from Hans Zimmer in Mission Impossible 2, it's Hans Zimmer! How can you not enjoy something of Hans Zimmer? Come on! Point being is that, gunfire pursue, and Ethan is not gonna let anything bad happen to Nya and not let her die, and the fact that she's infected herself with the last sample of the virus and promises that he will save her. And then at one point throwing a bomb, creating, a giant hole to escape, and he jumps out and, throws a wire, and So now, with Nya having the virus in her, what Sean does next is, have her wander through the streets of Sydney to possibly create a pandemic. Golly, because, and the fact, because, it's not obvious to possibly infect the entire world with this virus. I think that shows you because how crazy and delinquent Sean is. And because the fact, because, he's a big flat-out traitor of IMF, and him becoming a terrorist, man, just and also to talk more about Dougray Scott as the character of Sean Ambrose. Well, Dougray Scott, I think he was really good with what he brought to the main antagonist of the second installment. And, of course, that goes for all the other cast members. None of them disappointed, in my opinion, because I think they all did pretty good. And, of course, with Ethan, and Tom Cruise as Ethan once again, and, with Ethan's chemistry and the love he has for Nya, and you can see it, and the fact that, he really just does not want anything bad for anything to happen to her. That's true love right there. And also, to mention more about, the gun firing and such that happened at the Biocide Pharmaceuticals building, because, the bad guys, knowing that Ethan and the others would be present, at one point, in the van that Luther's in, one of the bad guys plants a bomb underneath the van, and luckily Luther managed to see it, but with him trying to take some of the computers with him, at least one of them, his jacket gets caught on some wires, and we didn't even see him get out, because boom, the van exploded. But surely, right? They wouldn't kill Luther. Of course they didn't. They don't, because we see Luther. He did manage to get out, even though we didn't see it, but so good that Luther survived. So, continuing on, and to speed things up some still, like I said, Nya roaming around, and the possibility that a pandemic could happen. Ambrose meeting with McCloy to sell McCloy the cure, and predicting to McCloy that the virus and stuff at the Biocide Pharmaceuticals, the price of it will skyrocket and so on. Just, yeah. And thankfully, Ethan, of course, showing up, and they're in this, like, underground facility or something. Yeah, there's these tunnels and so on. Ethan making his way, and, you know, when hiding from Ambrose's henchmen, even when at one point, you know, he threw a bomb, and, well, of course, Ambrose discovering that Ethan alive and is present, and, of course, attempting to stop Ambrose. There's also some pigeons that are, you know, around, and, kind of a few times giving Ethan's position away because, you know, the noise that they make. And one of the Ambrose's henchmen, Hugh, when coming face to face with Ethan and when hearing a pigeon cooing, well, Ethan stopping Hugh, but then when another explosion happens, Ethan setting it off, and then we don't see what happens next, but obviously Ethan did survive from the explosion that he set off. But apparently, when Hugh comes back in the main room where, yeah, having McCloy and one of McCloy's employees, you know, transfer, like, the cure and so on, you know, on a laptop, you know, how it's done. Hugh coming in, and apparently Hugh has captured Ethan, and Ethan is kind of, like, mumbling and such, you know, not able to talk. And Ambrose tormenting Ethan, like, shooting one of his legs, and then eventually shooting Ethan. Or did he? There's no way. And Ambrose, he noticed that one of Ethan's fingers has, like, a bandage on it. Well, Hugh, because what Ambrose did to one of Hugh's fingers, and Hugh then had a little bandage around his finger, yeah. And then, when Ambrose discovers, and by, yeah, tearing off a mask that resembles Ethan, it's Hugh. We didn't see it on camera, but on screen, that is. Ethan managed to quickly change wardrobe, yeah, I think so, and put on a mask that resembled him. So, overall, Ambrose shot one of his main henchmen, Hugh, and Ambrose, like, screamed terrifyingly, and, well, yeah, because, okay, like, he was horrified that he shot one of his top henchmen, I guess. But, yeah, overall, Ethan, he succeeds on getting the cure, and hopefully an attempt to find Naya and to save her. But meanwhile, Naya, we see her a little later up towards, like, the edge of a cliff where the ocean is. She was planning to kill herself. I mean, I can understand why, because, well, wanting to make a sacrifice for not wanting the virus to be spreaded worldwide. But meanwhile, and before we get to that, another vehicle chase. Yeah, this time Ethan on a bike and the bad guys in cars chasing after Ethan. Even at one point, Ambrose, he gets on a bike. It's a red bike. And yeah, that chase sequence was pretty awesome. And, well, Ethan with a powerful gun and shooting the vehicles, and the vehicles, like, crashing and colliding and such. And ultimately, when it's now just Ambrose, and Ambrose chasing after Ethan, and when at one point near a beach sighting, you know, where the ocean is, they have, like, a, you know, motorcycle, you know, stand out, like, a showdown, you know, because, like, in the westerns, you know, you know what I'm trying to say. I can't place the word, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. And them charging at one another. But yeah, one of their bikes, I think, yeah, it's Ethan's, it's leaking, and I knew this was coming. Ethan, but also Ambrose, jumping out of their bikes, and yeah, and, you know, the bikes explode, and thus, Ethan and Ambrose, they have a fist fight and such, and, you know, Ethan attempting to take down Ambrose once and for all. Meanwhile, Luther and Billy, in a chopper, they locate and find Naya, and thankfully, she doesn't end up killing herself. And hopefully, there is time to save her before at any point she dies from the virus that she infected herself with. and Ethan and Ambrose, the fight that they have, and, man, because they're taking quite a beating at one another, and even when ultimately Ethan took a huge hit towards Ambrose with his foot, and even Ambrose landed on a rock, surely that would defeat him, right? Not really, because, when Luther, Billy, and Nia, they meet up with Ethan, and, Ethan has the cure, and was about to, lend it to Luther, but Ambrose is not finished. He's still alive and breathing, and whipping out a gun, and "you should have killed me," and quickly, he throws it to Luther. He grabs a gun that's in the sand, and thus, he shoots and kills and defeats Ambrose once and for all. So, so basically Ethan, he should have done that in the first place when he had the chance, and all throughout that time when they were fist fighting and such, why couldn't he whip out the gun on Ambrose? But he finally did. So, Sean Ambrose is defeated once and for all. That's the end of him. And just in time, and thanks to Luther, injecting the cure into Nia, and she's all right. And everything is, back to normal, the mission is accomplished, and that's great to see. And so the aftermath/epilogue to Mission Impossible 2, where, again, the mission is accomplished, and we once again see Swanbeck. And I should have known that the fact that Anthony Hopkins is not credited, he's uncredited, probably we wouldn't be getting that much of him, because we see him at the start of the film where, Swanbeck giving more details on the mission that Ethan is assigned to, and, the aftermath on it and such, And apparently, Swanbeck told Ethan that, he was supposed to bring back a sample of the virus, but, the fact that Ethan got rid of it, and, Nia injected the last one, and how Swanbeck put at it, what was the point? I think, and that especially goes for the cure, to bring back the cure and such, but, it's done and over with, and there was probably not a good idea for something of the virus to be saved, anyways. But, and, not to mention that, it was brought up where, with Nia helping out Ethan and such, her criminal records would be erased, and thus they are, and Nia will no longer be labeled as a criminal, and, probably so, be a spy, and, being assigned of IMF, no longer being a criminal, and, how it's said in the movie, And for Ethan, he goes back to his holiday/vacation, and it was pretty funny because when Swanbeck called out Ethan on, the mission on getting the virus, Ethan didn't tell the IMF where he was taking his vacation, and why should he? Because he was on vacation. But then, him saying that he will let IMF know next time where he is on holiday/on vacation. But now Swanbeck tells Ethan that it won't be necessary, so that's pretty funny. And the chemistry between Swanbeck and Ethan at times, pretty funny, but when they get serious, So, anyways, Ethan resuming his holiday/vacation in Australia, but this time with Nia, and thus they can pursue their relationship full-time, and they happily reunite at it's like a festival or something in Australia, near the Sydney Opera House, but and of course them going for a kiss and walking off happily, having a vacation together in Australia. That was a great way to end off the film, because it didn't end off with, say, Ethan being signed up for another mission, but overall, that was a great way to end it off. Mission Impossible 2. Again, say what you will. Yes, it's not the best in the Mission Impossible franchise/saga, but overall, I don't see it being god-awful or anything. I liked it. I enjoyed the direction that the second installment took, and I understood completely, what was happening and with its storyline, but, not powerful enough, and It's unfortunate, but at the same time, you know, it was okay. Just, yeah. And I'm sure for some of you, yeah, if any of you thought it was okay and you liked it some, just, yeah. But overall, I enjoyed it. Everything from beginning to end. The story, the characters, new faces that step in from, say, Thandoi Newton, Richard Roxburgh, Brendan Gleeson, and John Paulson, Anthony Hopkins, Dougray Scott, who's the main antagonist. The main villains in this Mission Impossible film I thought were pretty good. The location of the second installment, most notably being in Australia, really cool. The action sequences, the chemistry from these characters, moments where, yeah, just like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, you know. The music and score by Hans Zimmer. John Woo's direction, not bad, yeah. And oh, yeah, Ronald D. Moore, he was one of the writers for this movie, yeah. And also, like, yeah, Ronald D. Moore and Brannon Braga. Nice, yeah. And if you're familiar with those names, and most notably, yeah, Ronald D. Moore, coming straight from Star Trek, yeah. And again, like, you know, this Mission Impossible film had some good moments, in my opinion, and I'm sure you guys would think so too. Some good dialogue here and there, and like I said, the action sequences, Tom Cruise's stunt action, the chase sequences, just, yeah, what more do I have to say? Mission Impossible 2. It is what it is. It may not be the best installment, and the fact that, you know, this being the second installment, but that's not to say, in my opinion, it's bad. Again, I enjoyed it, and I'm sure some of you did as well. Yeah. And I'm giving Mission Impossible 2, why not? Just, yeah. This seems fair enough, yeah. I'm giving it 7 out of 10 stars. Yes, 7 out of 10 stars for Mission Impossible 2. And what about you guys? What did you think of Mission Impossible 2 itself? By any chance, this is one of your favorite Mission Impossible films in the franchise? Did you think it wasn't that bad? Are you on the same level as I am? What did you think of where the Mission Impossible film was taking with its storyline? And with new faces that step in, the chemistry of these characters, and, you know, the romance between Ethan and Naya. Do you have any favorite moments, and with the action sequences? And were you kind of like on the edge of your seat, just like, oh my gosh, like this, you know? Yeah, overall, what do you think of Mission Impossible 2 itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Mission Impossible 2. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. And continuing on with the Mission Impossible review marathon, stay tuned later tonight. Well, you know what's next, yeah. But the fact that the third installment would mark the directorial debut, you know, him directing movies, this being his first, a guy by the name of Abrams. But I think you know as of now. Definitely. Yeah. So, yes, again, stay tuned later tonight, and continuing on with the Mission Impossible review marathon, my review of Mission Impossible 3. Take care, and peace out.